Rabbit Hole Roundup, episode 35. Was the internet God-given? In today's edition of the Rabbit Hole Roundup, we're going to be talking about, first of all, I'm going to be starting with the whole Terrance Howard interview on Joe Rogan, which I listened to most of it, and I definitely took away some very good things, but also, while I liked the direction he was heading with some of his things, I definitely did not agree with some of his conclusions.
Denied?
We're going to be diving into that. We're going to be talking about this idea that was the internet actually given to us by God as a way of exposing the elites.
Where did you get all these nice things?
Internet?
And a way of actually reconnecting us to our higher power and to all this occult knowledge. I'm also going to be diving into this idea that even though I'm someone who definitely believes that pro sports have been rigged and in some cases might be scripted, I think that that whole narrative may have actually gotten too far for some people in this effort to get everyone on board with sports gambling and to make everyone think that they could all just purely predict the results of every game because every game is scripted and every athlete is in on it. And I may also be touching on the whole nonsense when it comes to the bird flu, as well as the whole nonsense when it comes to the whole Trump trial, as well as my thoughts on everything going on in the world right now. Anyways, I also want to thank all my new subscribers onto this channel, onto the Rabbit Hole Roundup channel, as well as all my new subscribers onto the JRE and James channel. I'm not sure how long the controllers of the platforms are actually going to allow my rise with the Rabbit Hole Roundup channel to go unfettered, especially because within the first 2 weeks of posting on this channel, I've already had 2 massive clips and I've added 80 new subscribers. So I appreciate that so much, but I'm definitely going to need you guys to continue supporting however you can, so this way I can continue putting out awesome content, I believe. And I can already see they've already started shadow banning me on some of my recent YouTube shorts, as well as TikTok has been going hard with that shadow banning, which is so frustrating. But that's actually the whole reason why I decided to create 2 separate channels recently. Even though I didn't want to, and even though it's not what I preferred, I think that at least having 2 separate channels is going to give me the best chance of success for all the topics I want to cover. Without further ado, let's dive into this rabbit hole now.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the Rabbit Hole Roundup. I'm JRE. If you guys didn't know that, must mean you're not subscribed to this channel or to the JRE and James channel. So make sure to do that right now. Make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts on this video. Follow me on every platform. Now, the first place I want to start was talking about the whole Terrance Howard interview on Joe Rogan. He definitely seems like a very smart, very intelligent guy.
Patrick, your genius is showing.
But, as I always say when it comes to any of these Hollywood people who suddenly become truth tellers, I'm very skeptical of any of them, especially considering how this guy definitely missed the ball when it comes to the whole flat earth debate. He believes that there's no such thing as a straight line, and therefore the people who wanted to convince us that the earth was flat couldn't do so, when I believe it was actually completely the other way around.
If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right.
The controllers, the old guard, the rulers, ruling class, whatever you want to call them, reptiles, they definitely wanted us to believe that the earth is a spinning ball that's spinning millions of miles per hour or thousands of miles per hour this way, that way, because what does that do? It disconnects us from our senses. It makes us outsource our authority to the people who can actually see this happening, because of course our senses are telling us that the earth is a flat stationary plane. But from kindergarten onward, they want us to believe that our senses are lying to us and that these people have done all the experiments and therefore they're telling us the truth. So what Terrance Howard got wrong is that he doesn't understand that a Jesuit priest was actually the one who came up with the whole spinning ball model as a way of getting us away from the flat stationary plane model. They wanted science to become the new religion, so how they do that? They infiltrate religion and tell people that the science is saying this. And as Austin Whitsitt actually posted on his Twitter recently, and I'm sure he can explain this much better than I can as of right now, the presence of the ether can only exist on a flat earth. And I think that that probably has to do with this idea of how you can't have a pressurized system next to a vacuum without a container, which is more proof of the flat earth. I like how Terrance Howard is talking about this idea of the ether and how in order for us to transmit energy, sounds, light waves, there has to be a medium to do so, which I think is the ether. And that's also why I believe all of our energies are connected, and that's why some people are actually still in tune with their psychic abilities. That's why all of our cells are actually connected, and why even just thinking about something could actually bring about certain actions that can only be explained by the presence of the ether, which is allowing all these energies to be transmitted. So I like how Terrance Howard references Tesla a lot, and how Tesla was actually smarter than Edison, but of course we only learn about Edison because Tesla was trying to talk about free energy as well as time travel. So now imagine if we actually learn more about those concepts. And another rabbit hole to go down is, I'm not even sure whether Tesla was actually 100% real.
They're real and they're spectacular.
Could he have just been this figure to show us technologies that like we already knew about, but like he was going to be the one to bring them, and now that like Tesla isn't here anymore, there's no one to bring about free energy. So that's how they keep us imprisoned, by convincing us the resources are limited and it's up to these people to stay in control of them and to make sure that every person gets rationed the correct amounts.
Get your rations!
And one other thing that like I also didn't like that Terrance Howard spoke about was he kept referencing Albert Einstein as being this super smart guy, this prophet, and he was essentially using him to prove that like the Earth is a spinning globe. When meanwhile, the whole theory of relativity was actually created to explain the way why things don't make sense. Why no experiment can actually ever prove the Earth's rotation and the Earth's movement. This idea of, oh, it's all relative to this, or it's all relative to that object. That was all nonsense to explain the way why our senses are telling us something different than what the science is telling us.
Blasphemous!
Because their whole goal was to convince us like we're on the spinning ball because we're just these insignificant specks of dust in this grand universe of space, and then you have like space-time. And this is also like how you end up with so many atheists who are trusting the science because the science is all about disconnecting us from God. It's like, as I heard someone on a podcast recently say, if the Earth is moving, why isn't it? Or if the Earth is a globe, why is it flat?
We can do this all night if you want.
Why have there never been any experiments to show us any curvature? But we're just supposed to trust those people, right? Right? And also, furthermore, as Sam Tripoli spoke about on one of his podcasts, Einstein was actually a fraud and a phony.
Like you didn't call me a phony?
Supposedly his wife actually did most of the experiments, and most of the papers were actually written by her. So why do they want us to believe in certain figureheads? Because you could say, oh, well, you're not smarter than Einstein. Einstein said this. Einstein coined the theory of relativity. Or Christopher Columbus did this. Or all these people in our past, Galileo or Isaac Newton, found the theory of gravity because an apple fell on his head. It's like, what it does is it's all about getting us to outsource our knowledge and outsource our power to these people who are supposed to be smarter than us, and how we can never figure it out because we're not scientists or we didn't do the experiments. I think it's all nonsense, but that's just me. Now, the next topic I want to dive into is, has this idea of sports being scripted been overplayed possibly? Or has it been put into the truther community too much as a way of getting people to spend their money on sports gambling and to ultimately mislead us and to make us think that everything is all scripted and we can't even enjoy it at all? Now, of course, don't get me wrong. I'm someone who believes, as I've actually done 2 podcasts on this topic, the pro sports have definitely been manipulated, as Tim Donaghy, the former referee, was accused of, as many cases have come out to show this. This idea of refs rigging games, this idea of certain players being involved with the mob and taking money to rig games, that's been proven. But this idea of every moment being scripted and every single player on the field or on the court being in on it, I think that like this may actually be overplayed a little bit too much. I'm not saying that like it never happens, and I'm not saying like it can happen. I'm sure that like there's probably been plenty of famous moments in sports history that have been somewhat scripted, but like I don't think that like every single game is scripted, and like I don't think that every single minute of play is scripted.
You couldn't write a crazier script.
Because in order for a script to happen, every moment would have to be practiced, every shot would have to hit off the rim just a certain way, every player would have to react a certain way. And one thing that like I actually don't like when it comes to this theory, even though once again I see it happening, I know that like parts of it are true, but like I don't think the whole theory is true. And as I'm always saying, we do have to question everything, so I'm not going to demonize anyone who does believe that like pro sports are all scripted. But for instance, here's some instances recently where I saw all these TikToks and Instagram posts talking about a script being followed, but then like it didn't actually come true, and I didn't hear the people who posted that admit to being wrong.
You sure proved us wrong.
First off, there was a post I was encountering numerous times talking about how 1994 was repeating itself once again in 2024, and all these various games and sporting teams were lining up perfectly with 1994. But the Pacers ended up beating the Knicks when supposedly the Knicks were actually supposed to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, which they didn't. Also, supposedly early on in the year, the Ravens were supposed to make it to the Super Bowl, which they didn't. The Chiefs and the whole Taylor Swift stuff happened. And so, I'm not saying that, like, there isn't any scripting going on, but, like, I just think that, could it be purposely leading us one way and then getting people to spend their money on it? I don't know, could be.
Hey, I told you.
Yeah, you told me.
It's all manipulated with junk bonds. You can't win.
And then, for instance, like, I saw a post recently talking about how the Mavericks versus the the Timberwolves, or whoever they played beforehand in the series prior to this one, where one of the game scores was 119 to 110. And yes, I understand numerology, I understand gematria, but like, I also think that sometimes the numbers can be used to fit your own narrative, and if you're someone who looks hard enough, you're always going to find some numbers that are going to fit your narrative. Now, it's not saying that like numerology and gematria is wrong, because I do believe like there are plenty of instances where it does actually make sense. Like, for instance, Aaron Gordon's brother died at 33, which, as many of us know, famous Freemason number. So of course, it does happen. Of course, some numbers do make sense, and some of them do add up. But like, how did this person explain how this random game had 9/11 in there, had 119 in there? I just think if you look hard enough, you're eventually going to find the numbers to fit your own narrative. And of course, it's always going to be easier to connect the dots and say, oh, this game was 100% rigged and this player did this when you're looking backwards. But like, if you can't actually predict it moving forwards, I become a little bit skeptical. And it becomes harder to trust your narrative. Especially because who benefits from thinking that like every moment of every sports game is scripted? The whole sports gambling industry, which has been growing massively, especially because sports gambling has been legalized in just about every state now. So if they can get you to think every series is scripted, every game is scripted, every moment is scripted, then you're going to be more inclined to bet all this money on those things.
Jerry, it's a lock.
And if you're wrong, the people who convinced you to bet on that aren't going to have any liability in that. So as I've spoken about in the past, rigging, yes, that's been proven. It definitely happens. Scripting, maybe the biggest moments of the biggest games, possibly. So maybe you have a quarterback here who's in on it. I mean, if any sport is going to be scripted, it would have to be football, basically. But like, beyond that, I think rigging happens with the referees.
Let's call that one a questionable call.
We can't win with the refs on the payroll.
All right.
Referees might be Freemasons, might be part of all these upper secret societies, but I don't think that like you could convince every player to follow a script and to be in on it, especially when these players have been working hard to get to these places for their whole lives. And as I spoke about during last week's video of the Leftover Lies, when Bubba Smith was talking about Super Bowl III being rigged, he wasn't part of the script, but like his quarterback was basically throwing the game because smart money was on the Jets. So just some interesting stuff to think about. And now I'm up to the main crux of this video that I want to get into, which is I was listening to a very interesting podcast last night where Sam Tripoli, as many of you guys know, my favorite podcaster outside of myself, was saying how he believes the internet was actually God-given. And I actually fully agree with this, because think about this. Before the internet, how was everyone getting their information? From the TV. So like everyone had to believe whatever the person on the TV was telling them. But nowadays, we have the internet where we have all the alternative information out there. We have every person who has their own platform. So yes, of course the internet was originally created by DARPA as a way of collecting their data, and I'm sure like the people in power were probably thinking to themselves, oh well, we can actually brainwash these people even more, because now these people are going to be carrying around their phones all the time. We can actually blast them with propaganda 24/7 and have them fully under our control. But what these people didn't expect was going to happen, which I believe is the whole reason why the internet got away from them, is because they didn't realize like we were actually going to use this internet and our phones in order to spread truth and reveal all this occult knowledge. And that's also like the whole reason why I also fully believe that like nowadays, now that like the old guard knows this, they're trying so hard to like infiltrate all the social media platforms and the internet with all this bad information, because if they can't control the spread of information, they may as well muddy it all up and confuse all of us. But also, as Sam Tripoli always says, he believes our phones and the internet is essentially hardwired mysticism.
How do we know this isn't some sort of holographic motion picture capture Hollywood wizardry?
I mean, think about it. Like, how is it that I could touch buttons on the screen and suddenly I could order food, I could connect with people, I could get this video footage of them? I mean, I don't think any of us even realize like how crazy this technology actually is.
You know, being a man of science, witches.
But yes, I do believe that like the internet actually was given by God in this effort to give us a leg up in the battle against sin and the battle against evil. I believe God always wins, and I believe the good always wins out. So of course, as I always talk about when it comes to the concept of duality, some people are going to use their phone for bad things, others are going to use it for good things. The internet isn't all bad or all good. It all depends on who's using it and the purposes like it's being used for. What do you guys think? Do you guys think the internet got away from them, and do you think like the internet was actually given to us by God? And did God actually trick the controllers into thinking that like the internet was going to be this way of spreading more propaganda and brainwashing us more. But then, because humanity, I believe, is ultimately good, we were going to win out and we were going to use it to spread truth. The next topic I want to dive into, getting back into more current events type stuff, is of course, the whole Trump trial was of course a sham. I mean, the whole idea of looking for a crime as opposed to actually having a crime and convicting the person of a crime is all complete nonsense. But having said that, being someone who questions everything, I also wonder, is Trump part of the sham? Could this just be a way of hijacking our loose, taking our spiritual energy, getting us all to believe in this one savior?
Master.
Even though he's the same one who created Operation Warp Speed, he's the one who put Larry Fink in charge of the Fed, the CEO of BlackRock. Now, of course, during his first term, I was actually a huge fan of his. And of course, he's obviously a million times better than Joe Biden. I mean, that obviously goes without saying. For anyone who actually has a brain, for anyone who's actually capable of thinking for themselves. But I'm not sure if I trust any politician, if I trust any of these people. Is he going to be the control opposition who's just going to get us on board with the militarization of our country and the military taking away more of our rights and more of our freedoms because we're going to be begging for martial law to get rid of the immigrants or to get rid of this group of people or that group of people? I don't know. I would like to believe in him, but I'm skeptical of everyone, especially knowing what I know now. Or could he also be control opposition who doesn't know he's control opposition? I tend to think more along the lines of Sam Tripoli once again, who believes that Trump is like Godzilla. So there are like a lot of good things he's gonna do. He's not necessarily a good guy, but the people on the other side want him dead, and they're gonna do whatever it takes to get him out of office because he isn't part of their crime organization, but he's part of a crime organization that's not as bad as the one who's in office now. I mean, a lot of this also ties into the whole Luciferian versus Malachian agenda. Could he be someone who is more of a Luciferian, but he's not about hurting kids and he's not about all that sick, dark, evil stuff? Possibly. We're gonna wait and see what happens. Those are just some of my thoughts when it comes to the whole situation. But question everything, as I always say. It does seem that the people who are attacking him don't want him in office, and they genuinely do hate him. And of course, he's pissing off all the right people, but I'm not sold on anyone. So we're going to leave it at that for now. And could they also be preparing us for another false flag event coming up where a Trump supporter did this in order to defend him? So therefore we have to demonize all these conspiracy theorists in the name of defending our democracy. What democracy is left anymore? I'm not even sure what the meaning of democracy is anymore these days. I'm not even sure if the original meaning of democracy was even supposed to be a good thing or not. But I do want to say, with all the crazy stuff going on, whether with the whole Trump trial, whether with what's going on in Canada and Australia, whether it's with the whole bird flu nonsense, which seems to be they're trying so hard to bring that into our minds and make this a thing. I mean, recently you had Mitt Romney saying, we don't want to make the same mistakes we did during the last pandemic, so therefore we have to lock everyone up, we have to kill all the chickens. It's complete nonsense, guys. Look into terrain theory, as I've spoken about numerous times in the past. They're just going to keep running the same play over and over again until enough of us catch on, which I actually believe most of us have, which is why I want to talk about how don't fall into the doom and gloom just yet.
How long is this going to take?
I know that it seems like things are getting crazier every day, but could it just be that our algorithms are all inundated with all this stuff? Could it be that everything is actually being exposed into the light? They, the controllers, want us to live in fear. They want us to think that all our freedoms are being taken away and life is going to be miserable. And they want us to give up.
You're telling me to quit?
I said give up.
But what I'm saying is be aware of everything that's going on. Don't fall into the darkness and don't succumb to darkness. Bring light to everything. Be aware, speak about these things, speak about what's going on. But realize all the energy jacking that's going on. Realize how the vast majority of these world events are being done as a way of getting us outraged, getting us angry.
It makes me so mad!
Because when we're angry, when we're in fear, or when we're outraged, we're not thinking logically, we're not our healthiest selves, and we can't vibrate at the highest frequency that we should be vibrating at. And tying into the whole bird flu nonsense once again, even though I haven't even looked into this a whole lot, because I think that enough of us have woken up to the nonsense behind this constant pandemic fear that I don't think any of us are going to fall for it again. I'm not saying that. I'm sure a lot of people probably will fall for it again, but I think enough of us have woken up to all the nonsense that happened during the whole pandemic, that these people don't have enough of our consent in order to go through with this agenda, and if they do, they're going to fail miserably. But the one article I actually looked into to prepare for this video, it said that 33 herds had succumbed to the bird flu. Why is it always number 33? Could it have anything to do with the Freemasons trying to run the show and trying to show us their power in every situation? I mean, why is it always 33 people died from COVID, or 33 people were shot and killed in this false flag event? Is it just like a total coincidence? Like it always happens to be the number 33 whenever they're trying to plan the big event?
Coincidence? I think not!
Look into it, guys. And now, I actually went to read some posts I saw on Twitter the other day, which I found to be very powerful, and I want to address these. So first off, there's many types of low magic that nearly anyone can do. Glamour, healing, herbal, incense, knot, mirror, paper, and potion, just to name a few. So what does this mean? It means that not all magic is bad, and not all magic is evil. Even though many of us truthers have been convinced that all magic is black magic, and all magic is evil, once again, coming back to this concept I'm always addressing of duality, everything can be used for bad or good depending on the person using it and depending on the intentions behind it. So, what actually classifies as magic? What about this idea of turning water to wine? What about this idea of parting the Red Seas? Could those things be considered positive magic? And I believe those things did happen. And I believe that a lot of us are actually capable of certain types of magic, even to these higher levels.
Oh, you're right. I am magic.
When it comes to manifestation and prayer plus action. But they don't want us to know that. And furthermore, this leads me into my final quote I want to address in this, which is, "A certain darkness is needed to see the stars," by Osho, a spiritual guru, I think. So now think about this. With all the evil that's going on, with all the corruption, with all the poisoning that's going on in our outer world, remember that you can't see the stars without darkness. So use everything that's going on, use all the darkness, but see it as an opportunity to bring light to every situation, see it as an opportunity to uncover and expose all the lies and all the corruption. But the good is going to win in the end, as long as all of us take it upon ourselves to become the best versions of ourselves, to vibrate at a higher frequency, to regain our own spiritual energy, and to focus on what we want more of in our lives. Anyways, guys, I love you guys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, be sure to drop a like, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts on this episode. I will catch you guys in the next one. Keep in mind, I'm probably going to be taking next week's episode off, but it's actually going to be for a very good reason. So hang with me, hang tight. I love you guys. Make sure you keep supporting, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.